Hello Fox musicians, welcome to the Music Den. I'm here today to tell you about one of my favorite instruments, the trumpet. The trumpet is a brass instrument. I'll tell you more about what that means shortly. But first, this is called a mouthpiece. Yeah, that doesn't sound like much, does it? But this is where the sound comes from on a trumpet, or any brass instrument. Brass instruments include trumpets, trombones, French horns, tubas, baritones, euphoniums, flugelhorns, a few others. There are lots of brass instruments. The way brass instruments work is there's this thing called the mouthpiece. And like any musical instrument, you've got to make vibrations for music to come out. The thing that vibrates on a brass instrument is your lips. So you buzz your lips into the mouthpiece, and then you attach the mouthpiece to the instrument, and it takes that buzzy sound and it changes it, and it makes it bigger, and it also puts some limits on it. So with the mouthpiece by itself, I can do a siren. But once I have it attached to an instrument, I can't do anywhere near as many of those pitches. I'm stuck with a set of notes called the overtone series. Those are the overtones. And those are the only notes I can play unless I make this tube longer. Brass instruments are tubes. They're very long tubes that are bent and curved around and shaped until they can fit into your hand, or in the case of a tuba, you can hold them on in front of your body. The longer the tube is, the lower the sound will be. So right now, this is the shortest this tube can be because I'm not pushing down any of these buttons. So those are the highest sounds I can make on the instrument. But if I push these buttons, I open up these smaller tubes, which makes the long tube longer. And if I combine these, I get even longer tubes. These are called valves, and that's because that's what they do. They open and close the openings to these these smaller tubes to make the long tube longer. Other things about the trumpet is shaped with this flare right here. This is called the bell. All brass instruments have a bell, and how big of a flare there is to the bell and where it starts affects the sound. It sounds mellower when the bell is bigger and more of the tube is shaped like a cone. When the tube is just kind of straight, right up until about here, like on a trumpet, the tone gets very focused and kind of assertive. But you take a French horn, where there's this huge flare to the bell, and it's a very kind of mellow, open, dark sound. An instrument that's very much like a trumpet is called the cornet, and you play it a lot like the trumpet. The only real difference is that there's more flare, it works its way back, and it's slightly smaller. So a cornet has a slightly mellower sound than a trumpet, but other than that, you play it exactly the same way. I'm going to play a little bit more on my trumpet here, just to finish up this video, and after I'm done, I'm going to ask you to go back into your Google Classroom and find the slideshow I put together about brass instruments that will tell you a lot more about them, about their history, about what kinds there are, And one more thing I'm going to show you in a moment before I wrap this up, the mutes. In the beginning, trumpets, which were really all the brass instruments there were mainly used for signaling and to do fanfares. Fanfares are, like I just played, big moments when you are starting off some kind of big celebration, some gala presentation. Maybe a king wants you to pay notice to him. And the trumpets line up and they play the fanfare. Something to let you know, hey, the king's here, you better pay attention. An instrument that is like the trumpet but does not have the valves, so it can only play those overtones I talked about earlier, is called the bugle. And bugles are mainly a military instrument because trumpets and bugles can make a very loud sound that projects really well, all the way across the battlefield even. So these are excellent signaling devices. And the way a bugle would work, the bugler has a set of tunes he plays that are called bugle calls. Each one means something in particular. The one that most people are familiar with is called revelry, which is the wake-up signal. So you hear that? It's time to get out of bed. Another famous bugle call is taps, which gets played when it's time to go to bed, and also at funerals. Now, one thing we like to do with trumpets and other brass instruments is put things into the bell called mutes. What a mute does is it takes the sound and it limits it in a way that makes it just different. It's called a straight mute. This is called a cup mute. And straight mute, I think, always makes the trumpet sound like a sharp instrument. This makes it sound a little more mellow. Now this one, it's called the Herrmann mute. Also sometimes called the wah-wah mute. When this stem part is in, it can make that kind of wah-wah sound. When it's out, it makes a more buzzy sound, which you hear a lot in jazz music. And finally, is the one that people always find funny. This is the plunger. And yes, this is the end of a toilet plunger. It's never been used in a toilet. Don't worry, I bought it brand new, just like this. And this is for shaping the sound. I did a little something in there called a flutter tongue. You separate the notes on the trumpet like on any wind instrument with your tongue, just like you do on your recorder. And if you make your tongue go vibrate like that, you can make the trumpet make that kind of a noise too. But we don't do that a whole lot. Alright, I'm going to finish up with a little more playing, and then it's your turn to go in and find the slideshow about, I call it the anatomy of the trumpet, or trumpet anatomy, and just click your way through it, including the quiz at the end. Don't worry, this is not graded, this is just to help you learn. Enjoy it. Thanks for joining me in the music den today, Fox musicians, and I will see you very soon.